on past media effects, it's pretty much, it's well settled that the media have powerful effects. If you know where to look for them, obviously if you're getting strong messages that cancel each other out, you're not going to find anything. If you're looking just at people who already have extremely well-developed schemas about their political ideology, you're not going to see much change either. Leaving that aside, moving on to the supply side, the political economy of media. This is sort of what should ideally happen in a media system. You have the people, all of the people, freely debating, creates public opinion, and the public opinion affects our elected representatives, so we end up getting what we want out of government. It's not supposed to be a system where media companies have an undue amount of influence over the public sphere, where they essentially dominate the public sphere and provide a limited scope for debate within that mediatized public sphere. Just a brief history of the means of communication. I really like the Portuguese word for media, meios de comunicação, means of communication instead of media. It points out that these are just tools used to disseminate information, to spread physical bits of information far and wide. I was going to do a little anecdote here, but don't have time for it. It's kind of funny how it, anyway, I can't do it. So early public sphere, coffee shops, salons, a very small percentage of the population getting to participate in these. Today, a much larger public sphere, far more literate people who can participate, but it's very largely mediatized. It's more around the TV, around the internet, less in terms of big open public debates. You don't have to do that anymore. You can get it by listening to radio on your way to work, etc. The public sphere has shifted into a mediatized realm. Consolidation, most of us probably already know that massive consolidation has occurred in the media space over the past several decades. The problem with this is not necessarily the consolidation will necessarily lead to a reduction in ideological diversity and pluralism, but that there is an appearance of impropriety. It's kind of like the appearance of impropriety standard for judges. It's more possible to have a reduction in ideological diversity if you have consolidation, and for that just because that's more possible, it's an evil to be avoided. Another thing, just like omission in media effects, exclusion is the key problem in the realm of the political economy of media. As the law professor Stanley Ingwer points out, if in the modern political sphere, it doesn't make any difference whether I get up on a soapbox and spout my views. To really enter the modern political sphere, I need to be on TV, radio, newspaper, or at least a well-trafficked internet site. Then the right to freedom of expression, to avoid criminal penalty for expressing oneself, means nothing because you have no real ability to exercise the right. And then Williams and Marcuse make essentially the same point. In political economy of media, you also have neoclassical approaches, using models to get at what might be the underlying structure of forces operating in the media system. So here are some conclusions from neoclassical models, interesting in themselves to some extent, but more interesting is that even from an orthodox neoclassical economic perspective, the product that the media currently offers in the digital age is a public good. It's non-excludable and non-rivalrous, meaning that even according to orthodox economic theory, it's best provided by government, not the private market, which will lead to market failure. Public goods are not provided effectively by the private market. So even this very conservative area of thought leads us to the conclusion that the news media need to be nationalized. So let that sink in for a second. Commercialism, these are forms of bias operating on the supply of information that we get. This is just one. So obviously, yeah, if you offend powerful advertisers, you run the risk of them dropping their ads, and that's going to hurt your media company. That's one form of commercial bias. This is basically illustrating the same form of commercial bias. This over here is starting to get into another form of commercial bias as to how we can have a system in which political bias enters our media space because of commercial considerations. So, political bias in the media is a really hot topic. You have liberals arguing that there's a conservative bias, conservative arguing that there is a liberal bias. And so it kind of seems like it's just a wash, you know, like both of them are probably wrong, they're making a lot of noise over nothing. But when you actually look at their claims and go through the research they use to make their claims, there really isn't that much of a fight. Because what the conservatives in this battle say is that the media is biased in a liberal direction on social issues. That's what they focus on. And I think they're absolutely right. I mean, their evidence is persuasive to me that on social issues, the US media is biased in a liberal direction, kind of like this. However, on foreign policy issues, the people on the left that criticize the media for having a conservative bias focus on foreign policy and economic issues. And on that, they're 100% correct. There's been no attempted rebuttal at their argument, just as there's been no attempted rebuttal from the left for the right's claim that on social issues, the media has a liberal bias. Likewise, on economic issues, there's a sort of center-right bias. And the question as to why this might be the case, multiple explanations. One is that women and young people are the most desirable demographic for advertisers. Women because they make most household purchasing decisions, young people because they're viewed as still capable of inculcating a lifetime brand loyalty. So advertisers pay a premium for them. Because young people and women are more liberal on average, it makes sense to skew your news program to be a little more liberal to attract those. So that's one possible thing. Another thing is the journalists themselves. Surveys show that US journalists tend to be on the liberal side on social issues, tend to be to the center-right on economic issues. They also tend to be from the upper middle class disproportionately. So these sorts of biases might play a role. Going back to the propaganda model I mentioned earlier in manufacturing consent here, the five general forces that affect what information is likely to get into the supply the media offers and what information is likely to be excluded from that supply. Talked about a lot of these source bias I haven't talked a lot about. I can talk about that if you have any questions in questions. Lastly, people have recently supposed that or introduced a sixth form of bias, that is direct government control. In the 70s, through the Church Commission hearings, we found out that the CIA had assets throughout the US media system. What they were doing exactly, we don't know, although we do know that some of the so-called black propaganda that they used against Allende in Chile ended up in US newspapers as fact. So that kind of propaganda blowback could be part of it. But another thing is like the whole Judith Miller episode, the whole weapons of mass destruction debacle that led to this meme being very popular during the Bush administration, where it was just direct information from the government into the media, they reported, and people got the idea that Iraq was terribly dangerous. Another supply-side pressure is the current crisis in the new media. A lot of people think that this was caused by the internet. This process, however, started in the 70s, jobs being cut, journalist jobs being cut. That process was a 1970s phenomenon. It accelerated in the internet age, but it's been around for quite a while. You could watch the movie Network. That was largely talking about this dangerous sort of evolution of the media system towards a more sensationalistic, commercialized area. So conclusions from the supply side. Yeah, obviously the institution tasked with taking physical bits of information from all over the world and bringing it into living rooms, libraries all over the country is the most powerful entity within our ecology of information, or the most powerful entity within our marketplace of ideas. In the US, it tends to produce an ecology where ideas that are beneficial to, favored by, advantageous to in some way, powerful groups are more likely than ideas that are favored by, beneficial to, etc., powerless groups to be common within our information ecology or common within the marketplace of ideas.
Okay, so you're an hour and 10 minutes in. Colloquium runs until 3:30. I'd like people to have a chance to ask questions.
Okay, actually,
I know that you have 4 more slides. I know you. So that I'm going to defer to your. I'm going to Sean under the bus. No, you need to sum this up.
Okay, so basically the whole comparing media systems I could sum up in just this slide. around the world, across issues, across countries, across time. Public service media, government-funded media outperform commercial media just across the board. Hundreds of studies bear this out, which suggests that in order to solve our broken media system, we might want to look at one of the many proposed solutions out there, which would be, this is one of them that's quite simple to explain. It's a 5-sector model. Private sector stays the same. You bring in some of the best regulations. Civic sector, the Dutch model, grants to political groups. Professional sector model on BBC Al Jazeera, lots of money for the best journalists, do your job. Social market sector, Scandinavian model, grants to political and ethnic minorities to get their perspectives out there. And then the public service TV would be the core of the system, modeled on the German system, whereby all political ideologies of a certain appreciable size within the population get to have their views expressed. Lastly, when people ask, like, what